In this lesson, we're going to be importing some MongoDB databases, just like we did in database structures when we imported some SQL dumps, but it's done a little bit differently. First, you need to make sure that your Ubuntu instance is up and running. So make sure that you do have your VirtualBox Manager open, make sure this says running, make sure your black window is running somewhere, and then you can go ahead and minimize that because once it's running, we're really not going to be using it. So next we need to go ahead and start up terminal. And for this, we're actually going to open up two terminal windows. So the first one I'm going to open up, and here's a little trick. If you hit the up arrow, it'll go ahead and take your last command, which should be the SSH command to access the server. Otherwise, you may have to hit the up arrow several times to go through several different commands. If not, go ahead and type it in. The server is ADB server. The password is ADB. And there we are at the Ubuntu ADB prompt. Now, I also am going to open up a second window. I opened up that window by hitting Command and N while being on this window. I will make it a little larger as well. And I'm also going to go ahead and SSH into the Ubuntu server. So technically, the server believes that there are two people logged into it. One from this window and one from this window. They are two different windows, sort of like two different people visiting a website. They're handled differently. They're independent of each other. So, next, for security reasons, by default, MongoDB would normally ask for a username and password. However, by default, actually, MongoDB is accessible without a username and password. But the connections are limited to localhost. What this means is we can access Mongo without any username and password. However, we do have to be on the Ubuntu server. So over here, I'm just going to type the words Mongo. And when I hit enter, it'll give us some warnings. You can ignore those. But it does tell us we're running on Mongo Shell 3.2.11. A couple warnings, and then we get this prompt. This is the Mongo prompt. What this means is that we are looking at the Mongo database. Notice over here, we get a different prompt. This is commonly referred to as the OS prompt, or I may also call it the Ubuntu prompt. It's the prompt for the system, meaning if we type commands in here, this runs in Ubuntu. If we type commands now here, we are connected to Mongo, it runs against the database. And obviously the database and Ubuntu take different commands. If over here I type pwd, it has a file system that stands for present working directory. It lets me know where I am. But over here, if I type pwd, it's going to throw an error because it has no idea what that is. Oh, we get something called native code. I'm not even sure what that is. So, the next thing we're going to need to do is import a couple databases. And from the lesson, you should have downloaded courses location user.zip. What we need to do is go ahead and unzip this. And we should have 3 files. Now, we need to transfer those files to the Ubuntu server. So what I need to do now is run FileZilla. I'm going to connect, you have a lot less here. I'm going to connect to my server. And you should have these directories and files listed here on the right. On the left here, I need to go ahead, and again, your directory structure will be different, but I'm going to go to desktop because that is where I stored all my information. And I have a folder here called ADB material. Again, I just created a folder here in an earlier lesson, and I've been putting all of my downloads into there. Wherever you saved it, maybe it was the downloads folder, go ahead and find it on the left. And then over here, you should have these files on the right. So let me click into this directory. And now I want to transfer these files over to here. I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to go over to our window here and type ls-l. And you notice it shows the HTML directory. It's actually a shortcut. 2 files, jCameron-Key ASC and ASC1, John text. Okay, now I'm going to copy these 3 files, and I just hit the first one, held down the shift button, hit the last one, and now I'm going to drag them to the right and drop. Now what it did is transfer them over from this side's our computer, our MacBook. This side is the Ubuntu server. So now when I go over here and I type the same command, here are the new files that I just pulled over. So once the files are over on the server, let's go ahead and get rid of it. I'll leave this window over to the side here. We're going to need that for the import. Let me make it a little bigger. And we're going to import all three files. The first one is going to be the location file. What I want to do is I'm going to click on it just to show you what these are. And they are literally JSON files. Well, files with JSON records in them. They have an ID, a rating, a price, or a Yelp, a whole bunch of information if I scroll all the way. Essentially, these are a whole bunch of businesses that I downloaded, converted into JSON, and put them in here, including GPS coordinates, which we'll be using in a later lesson. If I look at the other files, they're also JSON. Courses is a whole list of courses, including advanced databases, and users, which is a list of users similar to what we had in database structures. So in order to import these, I need to go ahead and run these commands here. So from your OS prompt, we need to be in the same directory as these three files. So they are right here. It's we need to run Mongo import space -d says which database are we targeting, and I'm going to create a database called ADB. The next one is what collection we're importing into, and the best way to think of a collection, it's like a table without structure. So in SQL we had a database, and then in the database we had tables. In Mongo we have a database, and then in the database we have collections. So I'm going to create a new collection here called location. And then I have to tell it what I want to import. So I'm going to say -- file location.json. So -- file space location.json. And when I hit enter, you notice it was extremely quick. It said imported 15,970 documents. That's nice. All right, next thing we're going to do is the same thing, but we need to do it for the user, and for courses. So again, I'm going to hit the up arrow, and I'm going to modify this. Instead of location, we're going into the user, and the collection is going to be called user. We're still going to use the ADB database, and we're still using Mongo import. Everything there looks good. I'll give that a run. And that imported almost 100,000 documents. And then for the last one, we're going to use courses. So I'm going to say courses, and the collection, courses, and that imported. As long as it came back and said imported 13 documents, imported 97,000, imported 15,009, the data has been imported. In the next lesson, we're going to learn how to access the database now and see these different tables and actually get the data back from them.